like those kind of like coincidences that happen in life that are, um, that are just too to be just coincidences, and I heard somebody say that coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's funny because like the word coincidences, um, it doesn't resonate with me as much as kismet or synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's like when you, but but there is a sequencing which is part of the word of coincidence. Um, so it is, and I think it leads you on a path, and I think when you're on the right path, you see more of those things happen more, and that tells you I'm going. I'm going the right way. Keep forging forward.
Yeah, yeah. Golly, we've only been at this for 18 minutes, and y'all have already made my day. You might want to consider doing this like every Saturday.
You think? That's why you're management. Great ideas. They just keep coming. Kayla, did...
Shane, hi, I'm on break, so I wanted to say this. Shane, I was listening to you, and I think it's so crazy that you said that, like, you don't really feel coincidences, because my whole friend group, we always say that there is no coincidences. It's just a reminder that you're on the right path.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love it.
So
I'll make that day too, and one of the reasons that I'm kind of grateful for this is that Woke House went online for Zoom, so I get to attend. So it sucks in the big picture, but there's always some little nuggets that you can take from it, and this is one of my nuggets that I am very glad that this is accessible to me.
So you talk about synchronicity and how the universe speaks to us through others, and that's exactly the theme for today. I got up at 6:30 and wrote something that lines up exactly with that topic. And after I wrote it, my wife, she went to work today, and she said that her dad is in the he's in the nursing home, and he banks in Poth at the Bank of Fall City. And she said, "Can you take this deposit and drop it off over there in Poth?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So after she left, I went ahead and drove over there. I left my phone. I left everything here because Poth is only a couple of minutes from me. And I thought I knew where the bank was. And so I drove over to Poth, and I pulled up in front of this building, and it wasn't there anymore. They had moved the bank. And I said, "Oh, crap." So I didn't have my phone. I didn't have anything. So I kind of drove around that circle there in downtown Poth. And I'm like, I don't know where they moved the bank to. And so here comes Farmer Brown in a truck. And I jump out and I like kind of wave. And he stops and I say, "Man, I thought the Bank of Falls City was here. And I know it was here several years ago. Do you know where it's at now?" He didn't even say anything. He just pointed. And I looked at where he was pointing, and through the trees I could see the sign that said Bank of Fall City. And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." So then I jumped in my car and I drove like a block away, and there was the bank, and I put it in the night deposit. So I needed that guy, I needed other people to show me the way. And it was so beautiful that happened, because what I had written a couple of hours before kind of lined up with that message, right? So I'd like to read this to you if that's okay, and then maybe we can discuss it a little bit before we do the chanting and the meditation and all that stuff, okay? So this was on my mind as soon as I woke up, and so I wrote it down. It said, "I have a topic for Woke House, but the topic isn't really important. I am never trying to teach anything, but just like the chanting and the sitting meditation, I hold sacred the act of us collectively thinking about things. I hold sacred the act of discussion. I cannot learn certain things on my own or apart from other people. I need you. I need you to disagree with me. I need you to go off topic. I need you to share of yourself. I even need you to help me come up with a topic or make me come up with a topic for every Saturday. I am faced daily with the real threat of losing the ability to think, the ability to discuss, the ability to see another person's point of view. That is why I hold Woke House sacred. It exists not because of me. Woke House exists because of you. Without others, there is no use for me. This entire dream of a Kylie has no use or purpose without a world, without others. I think we are here for others until we can truly see that we are all one. And so that's what I wrote at like 6:30 this morning. I wonder if that resonates with anybody.
Definitely. Yeah. Especially the last thing you said, that we're all one. You know, because I do believe that. I believe that we're all connected in a way that we can't see. You know? And I've shared with you, Kylie, before that quote from Einstein that the greatest illusion of mankind is that there's more than one of us. You know, and I believe that's true. And I believe, stuck in our bodies, sometimes we don't always have awareness of that. But I believe it's real.
Thank you, Mark. Anything else? Anything come up for anybody else when I was reading that?
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful poetry. And there's just, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, I sit and isolate when you write, when that's what your thing is. You do that in a vacuum, in a sense. And, like, me not being able to hang out with people and talk to people and hear other people's stories has been very difficult for me. And so and the validation of my existence comes from listening to other people and hearing their experiences and being part of their lives and just participating with the world around me.
Thank you, Shane. Anybody else have any thoughts before we move on? How about you, green hair?
When the pandemic started, our company told us that we were having to have face-to-face, quote-unquote, through camera meetings with our staff. And at first I was like, that's ridiculous. They just want to keep us busy. Because we're working from home a couple days or whatever, or we were at that time. And so I underestimated, the need for a connection at that moment. And I know that our staff had already been working for a week or so, from home. And so we started having these conversations over Teams or whatever. And then we were also asked to have at least twice a week, a meeting where we had all of our staff together, in this Brady Bunch fashion, right? And I think that as soon as I had the first meeting, it clicked. That need for connection and how we were also disjointed or feeling disjointed already at being separated. And so, that was one of the things that just, came up in the back of my head. And I had not heard that quote that Mark said a minute ago ever, and I thought that was really good. It's a great illusion. we need each other, and you know, this need for social distancing has highlighted that, and shown those cracks that we never really realized we had, as far as like the need for that. And I think that for myself, anyways, whenever we go back to whatever is going to be considered normal, I'll be much more thankful for that ability to not have to be like wearing a face mask necessarily at that point, hopefully, and being able to just be free to be with other people. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, George. All right. Well, let's go ahead and do the chanting and the meditation. We'll have some time for more discussion later. So I usually pull it up on the screen, but usually Josh does that, and Josh is not here today. So if you would just put yourself on mute and kind of just get into a meditative state, I'll do the chanting and we'll do the shrine work, and we'll move into the sitting meditation. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free from obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha in myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma in myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. Taking refuge in the Sangha in myself, I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. We'll bow to the shrine 3 times. Flower offering. This spread of flowers, fresh-hued and fragrant, I offer at the sacred lotus feet of the noble sage, with flowers in great variety, the Buddha I adore, and by this merit may I gain release, even as these flowers must fade, my body too will pass away. Offering of light. With lights brightly shining, dispelling the gloom, I honor the fully awakened, that light of the triple world who dispels the gloom of ignorance. Offering of incense. Perfumed with infinite qualities, the Tathagata, fragrant of face and form, I revere with incense, sweet and penetrating. Offering of water. We offer water, symbol of purity, to the Buddhas of all times. May this water both wash away the obscurations of ignorance and sate the thirst of craving and aversion. Notes on mindful breathing. Anapanasati is mindfulness on respiration. Ana means inhalation. Anapada means exhalation. Concentration on the breathing process leads to one-pointedness of the mind and ultimately to insight, which enables one to attain liberation, freedom, and perfection. The Buddha practiced concentration on respiration before he attained enlightenment, but this beneficial meditation may be practiced by any person, irrespective of religious beliefs. We will inhale through the nostrils normally, without strain, without force. While doing so, the mind may wander, but one should not be discouraged. When a wandering thought is detected, label it as thinking and return to the breath. All right. So we'll do 15 minutes of setting meditation. Enter into the silence and see what comes up for you. Try to find the still point at your center and remain there for as long as you can. Hi, Sotira. We can't hear you, darling. So, Tara, if you want to leave yourself on mute, that's okay, because we're gonna. So we're so
Can you hear me?
we can. So we're gonna go into a 15-minute meditation, okay? And then after the
Okay, wonderful.
after the meditation, we're gonna have a lot of discussion, okay? So welcome.
Okay, I'm experimenting with my Bluetooth
Oh,
for the first time.
all right.
But you can really hear me, right?
We can hear you.
Okay,
All right.
wonderful.
Okay, so we'll
Meditation.
tune back in 15 minutes, okay?
Okay, great.
Now everybody's enlightened, right? Malcolm, what was this? What was this?
Oh, I said definitely.
And you went like this.
Listen.
I saw what you did.
Hey, maybe that's a secret to enlightenment.
Maybe. No judgment here.
Snoop Dogg is a Bodhisattva.
You know, I was reading a thing talking about Bodhisattvas come in all shapes and forms, you know, to serve the purpose that they're supposed to serve here. And it might be the most unlikely person. It might even be President Trump, who's a Bodhisattva that came back to stir things up, to teach us about compassion and love and forgiveness.
They did call for the release of the Panchen Lama.
They did?
Yeah.
Trump,
the U.S. government.
the government did?
Mm-hmm. And they're also going to ban TikTok, so...
They're going to ban TikTok.
We'll see.
There goes my career.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
So I have a couple of scriptures that I can read. And maybe they tie together, maybe they don't tie together. But the one that I put as a kind of advertisement for today, and I'm going to paraphrase it. And I want to ask and see what y'all think about this. And I don't know if Buddha really said it. You know, they say that Buddha said a lot of stuff. I've never seen this quote before, so it might be the Buddha that lives on the south side of San Antonio that said it. It might be the Buddha that lives in Austin that said it. I don't know what Buddha said it, but I'm going to paraphrase it. And this might be touchy for people that have trauma in their past around other people, you know. It says, your forgiveness should be that the person does not even know they are being forgiven or that you are even mad at them. This is real compassion. Your forgiveness should be that the person does not even know they are being forgiven or that you were mad at them. This is real compassion. What do you think about that statement?
It's like giving without receiving, you know, like it's the same thing. Like you give without wanting to receive something, and like you forgive without even needing to tell them that you forgive them because you don't need their validation.
Thank you, Yosheli. Good to see you this morning.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
I was thinking about how it also applies to asking forgiveness. You know, that like really asking forgiveness means forgive. Like making amends to someone that's something that I do for me. So if I'm making amends to someone, whether that person chooses to forgive or not is up to them. It's like I've done my part by stepping out and being vulnerable and making amends, and it's not. I should have no expectations about whether that person accepts my amends or not.
Thank you, Mark.
It depends on the situation and who you're seeking to forgive and for what. Because if it's somebody that you set a boundary with that you're not going to engage with, yeah, trying to enlighten them to your perspective, I don't think has anything to do with them. It has to do with the compassion for yourself. But if it's somebody that you still want to engage with and have community with and have a relationship with, I think the conversation is important. And so that person may not have that understanding of their actions or statements or whatever, but you should, in a healthy relationship, I feel that being able to say, this thing that happened affected me in this way, and I know that you didn't mean it or whatever, but I still want to be able to share it with you, is a healthy way if you want to continue to engage with that person.
Thank you, Shane.
I think it's just like the mindset, knowing that you did all you could do. I don't know who said that, but somebody had said that like it's just like kind of for yourself to know, like, you did all you could do on your side, and you explained to them why it hurt your feelings, and if they can take it or not, but if that's just who you choose to put your energy into. Or
So, like, I hear you say explaining yourself to the person, but in this quote it says they shouldn't even know that you were mad at them or that you were even upset. That is the true compassion. Without even...
To me,
Huh?
I was saying, like, yeah, to me it seems like the message is to, yeah, forgive someone in such a way that they, like, it's kind of like of the utmost consideration for the other person rather than for yourself, like doing it for yourself, like Mark was saying. And that, yeah, just almost completely opting out of that anger and forgiveness, like ritual or like mentality, and then just kind of like sort of like short circuiting that in your own brain. And I don't know if that like means to just like have a really like thick skin, you know, or just really like be really I guess fixated on like moving on, you know. But that's kind of what it seems like to me.
I think that forgiveness really is a selfish thing, because in a good way, I think it's not really about the other person anymore. It's about focusing on our own health and well-being, and deciding that what the other person did is not going to matter in my life anymore.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, and I can't say that I can get anywhere near true compassion, you know. But a lot of times that anger or unforgiveness, it only exists between my two ears. It really doesn't involve the other person. It's something that I have to resolve within myself. I can't, you know, in some cases, for me, I can't make it that person's fault that they pressed a button in me. You know? It's like, why do I have that button still? You know? When I'm feeling triggered or stressed by someone or the world in general, it's not necessarily about them in some cases. It's more about me. Why did that thing trigger me? Why did that thing stress me out? Why did that thing set me off? You know? And I think that in some cases, if I don't react in the moment, and I resolve some of that stuff within myself, the person might not even know that I was upset. And that might be true compassion for myself and true compassion for them too. Not getting them involved in my bullshit. You know? Because sometimes that's all it is, you know? It's different if somebody attacks you or hurts you or does something intentionally to disrupt your life. But if it's... sometimes I get embarrassed in public because somebody says something to me in a crowd, you know? Or if somebody treats me kind of like, you know, I'm too dumb to understand something like technology or, you know, or anything offhanded, and I take it as a an attack, when really it might not necessarily from their side be an attack. There's only the illusion of it being an attack on my side. So it's my bullshit to resolve, not theirs. Does that make any sense?
It does, but I mean, is this where we talk about like you're healing in isolation, or we're all one?
Yeah.
So like, you may have the power to get over it, where somebody else doesn't have that internal strength yet. And so if you can communicate with somebody, so that they have an awareness of how much they impact others, and just, I mean, not to get them into your own bullshit. And like I said, it depends on your relationship with the person. But I think honest, open communication is more compassionate than isolation and ignoring it or not speaking about it.
So I like that idea. So you're saying that if we're offended and we feel like it would offend anyone, that type of behavior, it's our opportunity or our place to talk to that person about it and try to educate them around that.
Not necessarily. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if you have an open, honest relationship with somebody, telling them how you're feeling, whether it was that person's intention or not, helps them to be aware of how they impact others. I mean, I think we all need to be aware of the significance that even the slightest thing that we say can really make or break somebody that we know or don't know. And it was go back to the 4 agreements to being impeccable with your speech.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that thinking that it's yours to get over in isolation and alone is not healthy. I mean, some of us can, but I think the more open dialogue that we have with people about how we do affect one another, I think it raises awareness. And not to say that the person did anything wrong, but just that they'll have that awareness that sometimes even the most benign thing that they say in their mind can impact, because you don't know what another person has gone through. And so it's not about blaming or even the act of forgiveness or whatever. It's just more about talking honestly about the experiences that we have with our emotions.
You know, I was thinking too about the role of resentment in forgiveness. I had a mentor tell me years ago that if I have a resentment towards someone, the problem is always with me. And I thought he was crazy. It's like, of course I'm allowed to have a resentment towards somebody if it hurts me, right? But it's like, as I started examining it and started looking at my relationships with folks and people that I had resentments toward, I realized that he was right. Resentment is about me, and I had heard someone say too that resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will die. My resentment towards someone has no impact on that person, but it sure as hell hurts me. And I think that's why forgiveness is so important. Hard to do sometimes, but important.
And so, and I'm just kind of trying to look at all various sides of this. I don't know myself, and that's why conversation is so important, But I'm just kind of like trying to toy out that idea of, if I feel it, so when you say that, say in the 12 steps, when you go make your amends to somebody, it's because you want to clean up your side of the street. it's not because they did something to you. Even if they did, you're apologizing for your part in it, right? And so I'm wondering if, kind of going back to what Shane said, how important is it that person acknowledges their mistake? Because in this scripture here, and like I said, this is like ultimate enlightenment stuff, perfect compassion, it's like that person shouldn't be made to feel guilty if it's something that triggered you. Like Mark is saying, it has more to do with you than it does with them.
And I'm not saying that the person made a mistake, and I'm not saying that the person needs to acknowledge the mistake. I'm just saying communicating the experience with somebody, especially a person that you want to maintain a relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about somebody it's not in your world, you've set boundaries against, or whatever. And I'm thinking like it's on a spectrum. But if it's somebody that you want to maintain a relationship with, you say, hey, I want to let you know I had this experience. I know that you didn't have an intention toward it or whatever, but I want to share with you why I got that hurt, why I have this resentment, why I had this for so long against you. Not for them to acknowledge anything, but just to have open dialogue with somebody that you want to maintain a healthy relationship with.
Any thoughts about that?
I definitely relate to that idea of like, thinking and determining, really thinking carefully about like a response to something that is bugging me, or how to move past kind of like even just a simple miscommunication, and like just making, trying to be thoughtful to both sides, of the disagreement to make sure that the original kind of like intent is clarified, and to just share honestly how you feel, and to like hopefully move past it in in a compassionate way. But I still thinking I think like that still seems like kind of secondary to like the intent of the quote, but at the same time that's like super high order stuff. But I definitely have been going through that stuff myself recently, so I definitely feels like it's close to home.
Yeah, I kind of feel like too, if I'm forgiving someone and I have expectations of that person and how they're going to respond to that forgiveness, then it's not true forgiveness, and somebody was talking earlier, somebody mentioned earlier that I think they said that forgiveness was selfish, and I agree, and that's a good thing. It's like, if I'm forgiving someone, it makes me feel good. Just like if I'm making amends to someone, it makes me feel good. Those are two selfish things, and that's okay, because if I feel good, if my mental health and my spiritual health is in a good place because I'm forgiving and I'm making amends when I need to, that makes me a better person, and it makes me treat other people better. So I guess I'm saying the selfishness becomes selflessness in a way.
I think that's definitely true. One like thing I've noticed, like I think that's just kind of like shines a light on my mindset about how like making amends or whatever like is more so for me than for the other person in the situation. Just the amount of times I say sorry in like day-to-day life, especially like when I'm with certain people, like I always, it's kind of like a subliminal feeling of like stepping on people's toes and not wanting to be like, inconvenience someone, or even introduce any like negativity in the situation. But it's just say that word, just like, oh, sorry. Like at a certain point, it doesn't really mean anything, and it is super aggrandizing, and I think it's just something that I've noticed. It's just like a little behavior that I think is indicative of kind of like that the mindset of, oh, I need to be self-affirming, but like not in a very productive way, especially with regards to like other, how it's making other people feel, not how it's making myself feel.
I think we really have to choose our battles, and so when it comes to like communicating, if we have a resentment or something that we might want to bring up with somebody, it's like really delicate to decide if it's something that we just want to try to forgive and move on and forget, or if it's something that's going to repeat and it's a relationship that we value very highly and we want to make sure to actually have a discussion over and try to see if we can bring about change, because some things maybe aren't worth the potential fight, or if we have to kind of weigh whether we can actually get the result we want out of bringing it up rather than just forgiving. And so I think it's also about figuring out whether it's a relationship that's worth a conversation in general to begin with. But I think what I said earlier was more about like an experience with not necessarily somebody who you have a relationship with, like somebody who did you wrong. Because I was thinking about what Kylie said about like a traumatic experience, let's say. So forgiveness is more just about yourself.
Thank you.
In which case it makes perfect sense.
Forgiveness can be healing, right? So, we talk about the ultimate, I don't know. I definitely don't have true compassion, There's pointers to perfection in Buddhism, right? A state that we all try to attain and maybe take baby steps. And this scripture here talks about a bodhisattva, and a bodhisattva is somebody at that peak perfection of the Buddha's teachings, A bodhisattva is somebody that is totally dedicated to forgiveness and compassion and generosity and loving kindness and all that stuff. I think we're all baby bodhisattvas crawling on the path to enlightenment, right? Speaking for myself, I know. But I'm going to read this, and it's a little bit long, but maybe it can stir up a little conversation. It says, "It is said, pain regarded as happiness." Wait a minute, let me start again. "It is said that pain is regarded as happiness to those who sacrifice themselves for the good of others. The author of the Way of the Bodhisattva declares that a bodhisattva feels profound joy even in pain on the account of their great compassion. They are prepared to suffer in purgatory or other states of woe in order to save all creatures. Their only interest is for others and not of the pain that they have to endure. They are not afraid of the flaws of the world, and they indeed may be said to be free from the pains of the world or the flaws of the world. It is clear that these Mahayana Buddhists, these philosophers, exhibit a new attitude towards pain and suffering. And they also rise to a higher point of view when they declare that an advanced bodhisattva is above and beyond pleasure and pain, forgiveness and unforgiveness. They can associate the notion of pain or offense with pleasure when they get to forgive someone else. Such is a bodhisattva's perfection of insight in regards to pain and offense. So, that kind of, what it brings up for me is, not that I can practice it, but in Buddhism anyway, this is considered Maya or illusion. And one of Buddha's first insights was that this is suffering. Like, life is going to be unsatisfactory. Life is never going to live up to our expectations. And so that's one of the things that we try to find some solid ground to stand on, and that causes anxiety in us. And so once we realize that there is no solid ground to stand on, that we are going to die, we are going to grow old, we are going to get sick, we may lose that job, we may lose a loved one. All these things may happen because the world is imperfect. So it is dukkha. Life is subject to change. So if we do find some happiness, just stick around long enough, and that sadness, that happiness will turn to sadness because life is forever changing. There is no solid ground. So that's what Buddha was saying. And so in reading that, I was thinking about forgiveness and the fact that if somebody offends me, or if they have a different political view, or they have a different thought system that I find offensive, deep down, my Buddha nature is saying, well, of course they do, because they're a part of this Maya. They are part of the illusion. They are wrapped up in ignorance just like I am. Of course they're racist. Of course they have limited views. Of course they voted for the other party. They're as deluded and cycling in this this Maya, this illusion, this ignorance as I am. And everything is going to come into conflict here because we're not enlightened yet. Until we become enlightened, we're always going to be clashing heads and different ideas, and people are going to be offending one another and seeing things from a different point of view. And so my forgiveness can come from if somebody lets me down, or they don't live up to my expectations, or if they're being offensive in some way, as long as they're not hurting me or attacking me or doing something physical, then I can say, of course, they're a part of this Maya, they're a part of this illusion, they're part of this suffering that we're all cycling through right now. Does that make any sense? I can almost pre-forgive them for acting the way that they're acting or saying the thing that they said. It's almost like a pre-forgiveness, because I know that this world is nothing but conflict. So of course I'm going to be offended, because it's part of the nature of reality until enlightenment.
So if you were doing something to inflict pain on others or whatever, would you want that brought up to you? Or would that discussed to you to evolve? Or would you want to continue in your own ignorance and
Well, I would like it brought up to my attention.
So if we're all one, like, I think that has to be considered, and like, we're evolving to a new form of consciousness and a new way of doing things, and there's so much of us taking inward stock of who we are and how our false beliefs or our ignorances affect other people, but also affect ourselves. And so, I don't know. I think it's an evolution of thought and how we address those things. Because if we continue to allow those, we've kind of got to a tipping point for hurting each other. And so, like, we really need to swing the spectrum back where we take some responsibility when we meet ourselves doing something that affects people. And it's on the spectrum. I'm not saying, like, if they're just singing a song that triggers you, of course, you don't need to, you can, if it's somebody that you have a relationship with, you can talk about that experience and how you felt in that moment, and that you were trying to deal with it And so to understand if you have a negative reaction to somebody just singing the lyrics of a song, that your partner, your friend, or whatever can understand what you're going through and have compassion for your experience. But if it's on a grander scale, I think it's time that we hold ourselves accountable for the way that we're acting in the world. I mean, if we're truly one.
Yeah. I agree. But I guess, I want people to show me my blind spots, but I preferably in love. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that they understand that I'm as imperfect as anybody else. I'm caught up in this delusion. And so it's almost like saying, Kylie, I know you don't get this. I know you didn't mean to offend me, but I just want to point something out,
It's that open dialogue and conversation that we begin to have with each other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, but that's also with the relationship that we want to move forward. Not something that I see on the news or not something I see on a YouTube video. Those kind of people I probably won't be able to have a conversation with, but I can still forgive them because of their delusion. All right. That escalated quickly. Everybody okay?
Yeah, I was thinking I was listening to some kirtan music this morning, and it was on Pandora, and they had music, and they had.
Mark, we can barely hear you, Mark.
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Really?
Yeah.
Hold on. How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better, Mark.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Technology issues.
I hear you.
Yeah, so anyway, while I was listening to this music this morning, in between songs, they had Deepak Chopra come on, and it was just like this little sort of snippet of something he was saying, and he was saying that I have to recognize that that every human being is doing that. We're all doing the best we can with the level of awareness that we have. And hearing that made me think about the role of forgiveness too. Is that we're all doing the best we can. Based on our past experiences, family of origin, all that stuff.
Yeah, so there's this guy named Jordan Peterson, I think his name is. And he's saying that a lot of like our political views and how we view the world is a biological thing. So it's not only our environment and our upbringing and everything else, it's also something to do with our physical biology, like our DNA and stuff like that, And one of the things that what he says is we need each other. Because say somebody is a liberal, their personality might be about openness and communication and feelings, but they might not have any follow through, or they might not be like inventors or or be able to, run a water line or something, And then there's these other type of people that might be less identified with their feelings, are less in touch with like sharing and communication, but those type of people are really good at like follow through and completion and getting things done and being very logical. And so you need all these different types of people to work together. And of course they're going to not see eye to eye. Of course they're going to have different ideas. But without you, I wouldn't have any electricity, because I would have never built a power plant. But without me, there would be no social workers. There would be no psychiatrists. There would be no case managers, And that's just kind of a random example, but it's all these different personality types that make up a world that functions as efficiently as it does sometimes. And so it's, at a very deep level, it's intentional that we don't all agree, or we're not all the same personality type, or the world would be just very one way.
No, that is true. And that's like, I feel like that's too, like the open dialogue is to, instead of thinking that we're all right or that we're not all healing or not all trying to evolve, to make the world, I don't know, quote unquote, a better place. That sounds so cliche. But, and I will also add that is very much what astrology teaches us, is that you have different characteristics. You are a different, there's no two people who express exactly the same way with the details of astrology. We're all born into a unique time and place. And how you express that, that there's a fixed sense with astrology, that the expression of that fixed sense is unique in every way. And that's what I believe, that we need to get to the point of accepting how others live life and being more open with our communication to explain ourselves to each other, and accepting of how we move forward.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shane. Any closing thoughts before we move on to the chanting? All right. No.
Thanks again, Kylie.
No
Am
burn.
Am I on?
You are on.
Okay. Yes, I've been, I'm a Christian, and I meditate on the Word of God, but like so much of what you're saying is biblical, like the different parts of the body and how one part needs another, and even the scripture says, let not the eye say have no need for the ear. And I was also thinking, how love covers a multitude of sins. There's just acceptance of others, being other focused and caring about them, and with all the flaws and all that, we're all growing in knowledge, and I think you alluded to that, and yes, and that's really acceptance and relating with one another, getting to what a lot has to do with how well we know one another, and to be able to meet people where they're at. Love, amen.
Yes and amen, huh? Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing with us.
Okay, I'm doing it. Okay.
All right, anybody else have any closing thoughts before we move on? All right, well, if you want to put yourself on mute, and I'll do a little of the chanting, and then we'll move into the closing part of this ritual. Contemplation of the 10 perfecting qualities. May I be generous and helpful. May I be pure, virtuous, and well-disciplined. May I not be selfish. May I be strenuous, energetic, and persevering. May I be patient. May I be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others. May I be honest and truthful. May I be firm and resolute. May I be kind, compassionate, and friendly. May I be humble, calm, quiet, unruffled, and serene. Discourse on loving kindness. Just as a mother would protect her only child even at her own life's risk, so let everyone cultivate a boundless heart towards all beings. Let our hearts of boundless love pervade the whole world, so that all beings without exception might be happy. Closing dedication of merit. If I have attained any merit by the result of this practice, may it be accredited to all beings everywhere. May they find the source of suffering and extinguish it. May they find the source of happiness and increase it. May all beings dwell in ultimate unalloyed nibbana. We'll bow to the shrine 3 times. We'll bow to each other with smiles of gratitude. I need you and you need me. Can't escape it. Even when you disagree with me, I need you, especially then.
Stuck in the Kylie verse.
In the Kylie verse? Good to see you, Malcolm.
Good to see you too, man. It was nice to see you this week.
Absolutely.
You too, Mark.